Evelyn had investigated dozens of murders in her career, but nothing prepared her for the case that locals whispered about with trembling voices. The skin collector. The killer left no fingerprints, no footprints, no DNA. Only a single thing at every crime scene. A strange patch of human skin, stretched and framed like a piece of artwork. The first victim was found hanging from an abandoned barn rafter, his body untouched except for one horrifying detail. His entire back was missing. Clean, smooth, surgically removed. The air inside the barn felt wrong, heavy with the kind of silence that presses against your ears. Evelyn swept her flashlight across the wooden walls and froze. Hanging on rusty nails were thin sheets, dozens of them, each labeled with dates. Each one a different shade, texture, age. It wasn't random. It wasn't rage. It was collection. A cold shiver crawled down her spine as she realized something else. Every sheet of preserved skin had a small symbol carved into the corner. A spiraling circle. Exactly the same symbol that had been etched into the victim's remaining flesh. This wasn't a murder scene. It was a gallery made from people. And from somewhere deep inside the barn, Evelyn swore she heard breathing. Evelyn backed out of the barn slowly, her hand hovering over her gun. The breathing had stopped the moment she moved, as if whatever was hiding inside sensed her fear. Outside, the sheriff and forensic team were waiting, but when she tried to explain what she had seen, the words refused to form. How could she describe a wall lined with preserved human skin without sounding insane? The sheriff, a heavy man with tired eyes, placed a hand on her shoulder. "Evelyn, you're shaking." She didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the barn door. She couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was still watching her from the darkness inside. That night, she studied the spiral symbol found carved on the victim and the skins. It matched an old cult known as the Spiral Circle, a group believed to have died out decades ago. They were rumored to believe that human skin held memories, and the purest memories were taken only at the moment of death. Evelyn wanted to dismiss the myth, but the killer wasn't leaving art. He was leaving a message, and he wanted her to see it. The second body appeared 3 days later, displayed on a wooden bench in a children's playground. No blood, no signs of struggle, just another piece missing, this time the skin from both arms, removed with disturbing precision. Parents screamed, children cried, and officers taped off the area within minutes. But Evelyn noticed something no one else did. The spiral symbol here was different. Instead of a single circle, it had 2 overlapping spirals, almost like the killer was evolving or communicating. On the bench beside the victim was a small Polaroid picture. Evelyn picked it up carefully. It was a photo of the victim taken hours before his death. But the angle was wrong. It was taken from above, as if the killer had been watching the man from some hidden height. A message was scribbled on the back of the photo. "The memory lives beautifully in the skin." Evelyn's stomach twisted. The collector wasn't just killing for ritual. He was admiring his work. Evelyn spent the next nights unable to sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the gallery of skins, the spirals, the Polaroid. She started mapping the crime scenes on her wall and realized something horrifying. Each spot formed a line, a curved line, almost like the start of a larger spiral. The killer was drawing something across the entire town. At dawn, she received a call. Another body. This one was different. The victim was alive, barely. His skin was untouched, but his back was carved with the symbol. When Evelyn leaned closer, he whispered one word before dying. "Collector." It wasn't the killer's nickname. Sounded more like a title. The discovery changed everything. If Collector was a title, then he wasn't working alone. Evelyn dug into old records, tracing the cult's history, and found references to a ritual known as the Harvest of Memory. It required 10 pieces of skin from 10 different victims, each marked with an evolving spiral. Once completed, the cult believed it would awaken the vessel, a chosen member who would inherit the memories and lives of all victims. Evelyn felt sick. The killer wasn't collecting artwork. He was building a new identity. And with 4 victims already found, he was nearly halfway there. As she closed the file, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered. A distorted voice spoke. 5 down, 5 to go. I hope you're watching, Evelyn. Evelyn immediately began scanning the town for any pattern the killer might be following. She noticed something alarming. Each victim lived closer and closer to the town center, as if the collector was spiraling inward toward a final destination. That night, she walked through the empty streets, feeling the quiet suffocating her. Every window looked like an eye watching her. Every alley whispered her name. Suddenly, she found a symbol carved into the sidewalk. Fresh, the edges still rough. It wasn't the usual spiral. This one had 3 layers, forming a shape that looked almost like an eye. Evelyn knelt to study it, her heartbeat pounding. Someone stepped behind her. She spun around. No one. But the air carried a message, silent yet unmistakable. He was getting closer. At dawn, Evelyn received another message, this time a video. It showed a dimly lit room, walls covered in the same spirals she'd seen before. In the center sat the next victim, tied to a chair, trembling. The camera slowly zoomed in on his skin, almost lovingly, as if the collector was admiring it. Then a gloved hand appeared, gently touching the victim's shoulder. The collector spoke softly, almost tenderly. Evelyn, this one is special. His memories will be beautiful. Before the video ended, the camera tilted, revealing something behind the victim. A large canvas made of stitched human skin, and Evelyn's name carved across it. Evelyn felt the ground tilt beneath her. Why her? What did he want? She replayed the video again and again, analyzing shadows, angles, the faint sounds in the background. Then she caught something, barely audible but real. A church bell. Not digital. Old. There was only one church in town with a bell that still worked. She drove there immediately. The church was silent, its doors open just a crack. Inside, candles burned in a pattern on the floor, forming a massive spiral. At the center of the spiral lay the victim from the video, still alive but unconscious. And on the altar, a note with one sentence, "You are the final piece." Evelyn lifted her gun, moving cautiously toward the altar. The church felt alive, every shadow shifting like a living thing. She checked the victim, pulse weak but steady. She called for backup, but the line went dead the moment she spoke. A chill swept through the air. Slow footsteps echoed from the upper balcony. Evelyn pointed her flashlight upward. There he stood, the collector, wearing a mask made from overlapping pieces of skin. The spirals were carved into the mask, swirling across his face like living symbols. He spoke calmly. "You've been following my memories, Evelyn. Now it's time to join them." He stepped down the stairs slowly, deliberately, like he was savoring the moment. Evelyn fired. The gunshot exploded through the church, but the collector moved unnaturally fast, slipping into the shadows like smoke. She turned, searching, but he was already behind her. She felt his hand on her shoulder, cold, steady, deliberate. "Your skin," he whispered, "holds everything I need." She slammed her elbow into him and stumbled forward, grabbing the victim and dragging him toward the exit. The collector lunged, but the candles toppled, flames racing across the floor along the spiral pattern. The fire spread fast, too fast. The collector stepped back, staring at the flames as if betrayed by them. Evelyn escaped with the victim just as the church collapsed in a storm of fire and smoke. No body was found. Only a single piece of skin nailed to a charred beam, carved with a new message. "This is not the end." Liam had heard rumors about the abandoned Blackridge Hospital his whole life. Whispers of patients who went in but never came out, and a secret room the doctors never spoke of. They called it the Blood Room, a place where experimental surgeries were performed on living, screaming patients. Everyone in town believed the hospital was demolished decades ago, but Liam knew that was a lie. The building still stood deep in the woods, sealed off with iron chains. On a cold, moonless night, he decided to break in. The moment Liam stepped inside the abandoned hospital, the air changed. It was thicker, heavier, as if the walls themselves were still breathing. His flashlight beam cut through layers of dust floating like ash. The entrance hall was filled with rusted wheelchairs, overturned beds, and medical charts scattered across the floor. But something was wrong. Some papers looked fresh, untouched by time. A faint metallic dripping echoed from somewhere deeper inside. At first, Liam thought it was water leaking from an old pipe, until he noticed the floor. A thin trail of dark red liquid stretched down the corridor, sticky and glistening under the light. His heart pounded, but curiosity pulled him forward. On the peeling wall beside him, a message was scratched into the paint. "The room is still open." The letters were jagged, carved with something sharp. As Liam followed the bloody trail, he felt eyes watching him from the shadows. He turned his flashlight quickly, nothing. But the feeling didn't fade. He whispered to himself, "This place should be dead. So why does it feel alive?" As Liam ventured deeper into the hospital, the corridors narrowed, and the temperature dropped sharply. His own breath began to fog in the beam of the flashlight. He passed old surgical rooms with cracked windows and shattered lights. Inside one, metal tables were still strapped with leather restraints, as if patients had been dragged away recently. A sudden clang echoed behind him. He froze. Slowly turning around, Liam saw a surgical tray that had fallen to the ground, though he hadn't touched anything. Tools spilled across the floor. Scalpels, bone saws, rusted clamps. But one scalpel stood out. It wasn't rusted. It was clean, and it was warm. Liam's shaking hand dropped it instantly. Footsteps echoed from the hallway behind him. Slow, dragging, uneven. He pressed himself against the wall, turning off his flashlight. The footsteps grew louder, stopping right outside the room. In the darkness, a faint breath whispered through the broken doorframe. Then nothing. When Liam turned the flashlight back on, he noticed something written on the glass pane. A handprint, fresh, bloody, and underneath it, "He never left." Liam forced himself to move forward, though every instinct screamed for him to run. The bloody handprint kept replaying in his mind, each step echoing louder in the silence. He reached the central elevator shaft. Its metal doors twisted open as if something tore them apart. Inside, the elevator car was stuck halfway between floors, lights flickering dimly. He stepped closer and noticed deep claw marks scraped along the inside walls of the shaft. Not human nails. These were long, sharp, precise. Something had tried to climb out. A cold gust of wind shot upward from the darkness below, carrying a low moan. Liam pointed his flashlight down the shaft. The beam disappeared into an endless black void, but just before the light faded completely, too faint, glowing eyes stared back at him from the darkness. He stumbled backward, falling to the floor. The eyes blinked, once, slowly. Suddenly, a deafening metallic slam echoed above him. Liam looked up to see the elevator car shaking violently, as if something inside was trying to break free. The hospital trembled, and a single word echoed from below. "Down." Terrified but unwilling to turn back, Liam continued down the hallway until he reached a rusted metal door with a faded label. Surgical Wing B restricted. The lock was broken as if forced open recently. He pushed the door slowly, and it creaked like a dying scream. Inside, the smell hit him first. Thick, metallic, unmistakably blood. Old surgical lamps flickered weakly, illuminating rows of operating tables covered in dried stains. But what made Liam's stomach twist were the jars. Hundreds of them, lined neatly on shelves. Each jar contained pieces of human skin preserved in dark fluid, some shaped like faces, others like hands, and some carved with symbols he couldn't understand. A journal lay open on a metal cart, its pages smeared with red fingerprints. One entry caught his eye. "The experiments continue. The skin remembers. The room must be fed." Suddenly, a distant scream echoed from somewhere deeper inside the wing. A scream that was alive. Liam swallowed hard. The blood room wasn't abandoned. Someone was still inside. Liam stepped deeper into the surgical wing, where rusted instruments still hung from cracked tiles like metallic fossils. A cold draft brushed his neck, yet the air felt unnaturally still, too still for any breeze to exist. On the far wall, he noticed a set of old patient files scattered as if someone had rifled through them recently. Curiosity pushed him forward. He kneeled, lifting a file marked Experiment 14, Subject Liam Carter. His breath froze in his chest. How could his name be inside a building he had never visited before? Before he could process it, the lights flickered violently, plunging the hallway into pulses of darkness. In each flash, he saw a different silhouette at the end of the corridor. Tall, crooked, and jerking closer with every blink. Panic surged, but his legs wouldn't move, as if the building itself wanted him to stay. The silhouette stopped only a few meters away, its head twitching in rapid, unnatural motions. Liam shut his eyes, praying it would vanish. But instead, he heard a whisper, deep, broken, and right beside his ear. "Welcome back, Subject 14. Liam stumbled backward, clutching the file to his chest as the whisper echoed through the hallway. When he opened his eyes, the silhouette was gone, but the air was no longer silent. A slow dragging sound scraped along the floor, coming from a nearby operating room. Against every instinct urging him to flee, Liam approached the doorway. The room was illuminated by a single flickering surgical lamp, revealing an operating table strapped with torn leather restraints. Dried blood stained the metal surface in dark maroon streaks. Then he saw it. Fresh footprints leading from the table to the far corner, as if someone had just risen moments earlier. His pulse hammered in his ears. Suddenly, a figure lurched into view, crawling on all fours, its limbs bending backward in grotesque angles. His skin was pale and stretched, like wax melting off bone. Liam froze as it began to sniff the air, tracking his scent. A guttural growl rumbled from its chest, followed by a shrill screech that shattered the bulb above. Liam bolted from the room, knowing that whatever experiment had been done here was still alive, and now it was hunting him. His footsteps thundered down the corridor as Liam sprinted toward the main lobby, desperate for any sign of an exit. But every turn led him somewhere unfamiliar, as if the layout had changed since he entered. Doors that were once open were now sealed shut by chains he didn't remember seeing. The building was twisting around him, rearranging itself like a living organism. Then he heard it again. The creature's crawl, rapid and frantic, closing in behind him. Liam darted into a storage closet, forcing himself into the shadows. He clamped a hand over his mouth to silence his breathing. Through the slits in the wooden door, he saw the creature scuttle past, its elongated fingers scraping the walls, leaving long gouges in the peeling paint. For a moment, Liam thought he was safe, but the creature stopped abruptly and turned its head backward, as if listening. Its nostrils flared. It began moving slowly back toward the closet. Liam's heartbeat thundered so loudly he feared it could hear it. When the doorknob began to twitch, he braced himself for the worst, until a loud metallic crash sounded somewhere upstairs. The creature bolted toward the noise, giving Liam a chance to slip out and continue searching for an escape. Liam climbed the nearby stairwell, hoping the upper floors would offer a clearer path. But the moment he reached the second floor, he realized the air felt different, heavier, thicker, almost suffocating. The hallways here were lined with patient beds, each one occupied by a mannequin-like figure draped in hospital gowns. Their faces were blank, featureless, yet their heads turned slowly toward him as he walked by. A wave of nausea twisted his stomach. He kept moving, refusing to meet their gaze or lack of one. Halfway down the hall, he heard a faint beeping sound, steady and mechanical, coming from room 214. Against his better judgment, he pushed the door open. Inside was an old cardiac monitor still functioning, its green line flickering across the dusty screen. Next to it was a metal crib, rocking gently as if something inside were moving. Liam approached slowly, dread coiling around his spine. When he finally looked inside, he stumbled back in horror. The crib held a small, malformed creature, its skin translucent, showing veins pulsing beneath. Its eyes snapped open, pure black and filled with hunger. It reached toward him with tiny skeletal hands, letting out a rasping cry that echoed through the entire floor. Terrified, Liam sprinted away from the rocking crib, the creature's shriek still stabbing at his ears. He reached the end of the hallway, where a large metal door stood partially open. The sign above it read, "Intensive Treatment Ward." With no other route available, he slipped inside. The room was vast, filled with towering metal cages suspended from the ceiling by chains. Some cages were empty, swaying gently, while others held shapes too twisted to identify. A chill crawled across his skin as he realized these weren't patients. They were failed experiments. A soft humming sound drew his attention to the center of the room, where a massive containment tank bubbled with dark fluid. Floating inside was a humanoid figure, larger than the others, connected to dozens of wires and tubes. As Liam approached, the figure's eyes snapped open. The glass vibrated violently, cracks spreading outward like a spiderweb. An alarm blared, red lights flashing. Liam backed away as the tank exploded, sending shards flying. Through the haze of steam and shattered glass, the giant experiment slowly stepped out, its body towering, its face expressionless, its gaze fixed entirely on him. Liam stumbled backward as the towering experiment advanced, each step shaking the floor like a small quake. Its skin was a patchwork of surgical scars, stitched together with thick black thread. Its eyes were hollow, lifeless, yet burning with a cold intelligence. Liam ran behind a row of fallen cages, searching desperately for anything he could use as a weapon. The creature's footsteps thundered closer, tilted its head, listening, tracking him by sound alone. Liam spotted a broken metal pipe lying near a collapsed gurney. He grabbed it, gripping it tightly even though he knew it was almost useless against something this massive. Suddenly, the creature lunged, swinging one enormous arm and sending cages crashing in every direction. Liam narrowly rolled away, the wind from the impact knocking him off balance. He scrambled to his feet and sprinted toward an emergency exit door on the far wall. But when he shoved it, it didn't budge. Rust sealed it shut. The alarm still blared, red lights flashing across the massive room. The creature roared, a deep, vibrating sound that shook dust from the ceiling, and Liam realized he had only seconds before it reached him. With the creature only steps behind him, Liam climbed a nearby ladder leading to an overhead maintenance platform. The metal shook violently under his weight, but he pushed upward, clutching the broken pipe in one hand. The creature reached the base of the ladder and slammed its fist into the metal, bending the lower rungs like soft clay. Liam barely reached the top before the entire ladder tore free and crashed to the ground. Breathing heavily, he crawled across the narrow platform that overlooked the entire treatment ward. Below him, the creature stalked the shadows, its head drifting back and forth like a predator tracking blood. Liam spotted a control panel at the far end of the platform, old, rusted, but still connected to a system of overhead cages and support cables. A plan formed in his mind, dangerous but his only chance. He sprinted toward the panel, typing frantically through dust-covered switches. Sparks flew. The system groaned. Down below, the creature finally looked up, noticing him. It leaped, an impossible height, grabbing onto the side of the platform. Liam slammed the final switch. Above the creature, the support chains snapped loose. A massive cage dropped like a guillotine straight toward its skull. The crashing metal echoed through the ward as the cage slammed onto the creature, pinning it to the floor. Dust billowed into the air, and for a moment, silence filled the entire building. Liam collapsed to his knees in relief, but it wasn't over. The cage began to shake violently, the metal bending outward as the creature pushed against it with monstrous strength. Liam backed away, realizing the trap would only hold it for seconds. He scanned the platform and noticed a large emergency generator humming nearby. Thick wires connected it to the same overhead system he had manipulated moments earlier. If he overloaded it, he might be able to bring the entire ceiling down. The idea was insane, but so was staying alive in this place. He tore the wires from their brackets and smashed the generator casing with the metal pipe. Sparks erupted in a brilliant flash. The lights flickered, then blazed white-hot. A loud cracking sounded overhead. Below, the creature finally freed an arm from the cage, roaring in triumph. Liam sprinted, dove behind a concrete barrier, and braced himself. The entire platform gave way. Then the ceiling itself collapsed, burying the creature beneath tons of concrete, steel, and shattered equipment. When the dust finally settled, Liam pulled himself to his feet, coughing through the haze. The entire treatment ward was in ruins. Nothing moved beneath the rubble. No roar, no scraping crawl, nothing. For the first time since entering the hospital, the air felt still, normal. He limped toward a side corridor that had been exposed by the collapse. At the end of it, sunlight filtered through a cracked door. His pulse quickened. He pushed the door open and stepped outside into the cold night air. Behind him, the abandoned hospital loomed like a dying giant, its broken windows glowing faintly with the last sparks of the generator. Liam took one deep breath, then another. He was alive. But as he turned to leave, a faint beep echoed from deep inside the hospital. The same mechanical pulse he had heard earlier. The same rhythm from room 214. Liam froze, and from somewhere within the shadows of the ruined building, a second beep answered it. Then another, and another. The experiments were not dead. They were waking up. As Liam stepped out of the hospital, he thought the nightmare was finally over. But the shadows that haunted the halls had followed him outside. His phone buzzed with a new message. A photo of him sleeping in his own room, taken just minutes ago. Someone was watching him. And what happened in the hospital was only the beginning. Tonight, we enter a house that isn't just haunted, it's alive. A place where porcelain dolls watch your every move, where shadows whisper secrets you're not meant to hear. And for Lena, stepping inside was the beginning of a nightmare she could never escape. Stay close, if you dare, because what happens inside this house will haunt you forever. Lena had always been fascinated by forgotten places, but the old house at the end of Ravenswood Lane felt different. Locals called it the Dollhouse, a name whispered with the same caution used for curses. The house had been abandoned for nearly 40 years, yet children still swore they saw silhouettes moving behind its dusty curtains. One cold evening, driven by curiosity and the kind of thrill-seeking loneliness she never admitted to anyone, Lena decided to explore it. As she stepped onto the cracking wooden porch, a strange sound echoed from inside, something like tiny footsteps scurrying across a floor, too light to belong to a human, yet too distinct to be the wind. The front door, swollen from years of rain and decay, groaned open on its own, releasing a wave of air thick with dust and an unsettling sweetness, like old perfume clinging to forgotten clothes. Inside, the living room was filled wall-to-wall with porcelain dolls, hundreds of them. Their glass eyes followed her in a way that felt almost intentional. Some smiled unnaturally wide, others frowned, and a few had their faces cracked as if they had been dropped or struck. Each doll sat in a precise position, facing the hallway leading deeper inside. Lena felt her stomach twist as she noticed something stranger. Every single doll held a tiny paper tag tied to its wrist. When she picked up the nearest one, she froze. The tag had a name, a real name. Her flashlight flickered. Something moved behind her, slow, deliberate, and small. She turned around, heart pounding, expecting a rat or the wind, but instead saw a doll that hadn't been there before. One with hair the same color as hers, and a blank tag waiting to be written. Lena forced herself to breathe as she stepped farther into the house, though every part of her warned her to run. The floorboards creaked beneath her boots, releasing tiny puffs of dust with each step. The dolls remained eerily still, but she felt watched, as if every porcelain face leaned forward the moment she turned away. At the center of the living room sat a small, wooden chair positioned perfectly toward the hallway. A single doll rested on it, larger than the others, wearing a faded blue dress with lace sleeves. His head tilted just slightly, as if listening. Lena approached cautiously, noticing something unsettling. The doll's eyes were not glass, but human-like, moist and reflective, following her movements with unnatural precision. She knelt and examined the tag tied to its tiny wrist. Unlike the others, this one didn't have a name written on it. Instead, it had a date, tomorrow's date. Her pulse hammered in her ears. Was someone planning something? Was she being set up? Before she could think further, a soft tap-tap-tap came from above her, like something lightly drumming on the ceiling. Lena aimed her flashlight upward, but the beam struggled to cut through the swirling dust. Then she noticed something even more terrifying. Tiny footprints, child-sized, but too narrow, too sharp, running across the dusty wooden floor, leading directly to the staircase. They were fresh, and there were more than one set. Something had been moving around the house. Recently, a faint giggle echoed from the staircase. High-pitched, delicate, not human. The chair behind her scraped across the floor. Lena spun around, startled. But the chair was exactly where it had been. It was the doll that had moved. Now it sat upright, facing her directly. Its expression subtly changed into something like a smile. Lena stumbled backward, her breath caught in her throat. Every instinct screamed at her to leave, but a strange heaviness filled the air, as if the house itself resisted letting her go. She backed into the hallway, her flashlight trembling in her hand. The walls were lined with framed photos covered in grime, but as she wiped one with her sleeve, her blood froze. The pictures were not of people, but of dolls posed like humans. Entire families of porcelain, arranged in dinner scenes, bedtime routines, birthday parties. And in each photo, a blurry human figure stood behind them, tall, thin, hunched, never fully visible, always watching. A loud thud echoed from upstairs. Then another, slow, rhythmic, like heavy footsteps, though too deliberate, too uneven to be human steps. Lena's hands shook as she moved deeper into the hallway, following the trail of tiny footprints. The air grew colder, suffocating almost, carrying a faint scent of old wood and something metallic. Blood? Her heart pounded. Halfway down the hallway, she saw a door slightly ajar. Light flickered inside, warm, yellow, unnatural for such an abandoned house. She pushed it open with trembling fingers. It was a child's room, perfectly preserved, as if someone had lived there yesterday. A tiny bed with lace curtains, shelves filled with more dolls, a small wardrobe slightly open. But what caught her attention was the desk. Covered in papers, drawings done in crayon. She picked one up. It was a portrait of a girl, identical to her, same hair, same eyes, same mark on her cheek, drawn in a child's shaky hand. Under it, written in red crayon, "She's finally here." The wardrobe behind her creaked open by itself. Lena froze as the wardrobe door inched open, its hinges whining like a wounded animal. Her flashlight beam quivered as she aimed it toward the widening darkness. For a moment, nothing happened, just dust swirling in the stale air. Then a shape moved inside. Small, deliberate, something began crawling out. A porcelain hand emerged first, cracked and missing a finger. Then a tiny arm. Then the head. A doll's head, but twisted, shattered along one side, revealing an empty cavity where an eye should have been. But the doll wasn't alone. Two more figures lurked behind it, their movements jerky and unnatural, like puppets pulled by invisible strings. They clattered onto the floor, their little feet tapping rapidly with excitement, as if they had been waiting for her. Lena stumbled back, her heart thundering. The dolls began to advance toward her, their heads tilting in eerie unison. One of them began whispering, a faint, breathy sound, like someone trying to speak through broken lungs. Then the lights in the room flickered. Not electricity, because the house had none. This was something else. Something alive. A shadow swept across the walls, tall and elongated, moving with purpose. The dolls froze instantly, as if in fear. Lena backed toward the doorway, but before she could escape, The child's bedroom door slammed shut with a violent force, trapping her inside. The dolls turned their heads toward the closed door, then slowly back to her. The whispering grew louder. From behind the wardrobe, something bigger began to stand up. Something that had been crouching, waiting. A human-sized figure, but wrong, limbs too long, joints bending in the wrong direction. And in its hand, it held another doll. One that looked exactly like Lena. The towering figure stepped fully into the light, or what little light remained. Its skin looked pale and waxy, like melted candle leftovers reshaped into a human form. Its head jerked with broken, puppet-like movements, and its fingers twitched with anticipation as it clutched the doll modeled after Lena. The room grew colder. The dolls around her began to hum, a low, vibrating sound that felt like it crawled under her skin. Lena pressed her back against the wall, desperately searching for an exit, but the windows were nailed shut from the inside. The creature moved closer. With each step, its joints cracked loudly, bending in unnatural angles. It lifted the Lena doll to its face, tilting its head as if comparing. Then, in voice that sounded like multiple whispers layered together, it spoke. "You fit." Lena's blood turned to ice. The creature extended a hand toward her, not to grab her, but to offer the doll, as if giving her a mirror of her fate. When Lena didn't move, its posture twitched in irritation, turned the doll's head slowly, then snapped it clean off. The dolls in the room cheered, a chorus of tiny giggles. Suddenly, the floorboards beneath Lena began to shift. Small hands, dozens of them, poked through the cracks, grabbing at her ankles, pulling, clawing. She screamed and kicked free, stumbling toward the desk. In desperation, she grabbed a wooden chair and hurled it at the creature. The chair passed straight through it. The figure didn't even flinch. Instead, it lowered its head and charged. The dolls swarmed behind it, their tiny feet beating a frantic rhythm on the floor. Lena had only one thought left: run. Lena's heart pounded as she advanced deeper into the house. The hallway stretched endlessly, walls lined with rows of dolls, each one staring with a lifelike intensity that made her skin crawl. The air smelled of dust and old varnish, but beneath that was a faint metallic tang, like blood. Each step she took was echoed by tiny tapping noises, as if dozens of little feet were following her silently. She noticed one doll that seemed different from the others, a tiny ballerina in a faded pink dress, its head slightly tilted as if observing her every move. Lena tried to step around it, but the doll's eyes seemed to follow her, unblinking, patient, calculating. She forced herself to keep walking, but the feeling of being watched grew unbearable. Then she saw something that made her blood freeze. Footprints, child-sized but impossibly precise, appearing on the dusty floor, leading straight to the playroom at the end of the hallway. Before she could react, a whisper brushed her ear. "Why are you here, Lena?" She spun around, heart hammering, but the hallway was empty. Only the dolls remained, all turned slightly toward her, heads tilting unnaturally, smiles widening. Lena's flashlight flickered as shadows seemed to move independently of their sources. The room grew colder, a suffocating chill pressing down on her chest. A distant creaking sounded from above, slow and rhythmic, like someone, or something, walking carefully along the floorboards. Lena realized she wasn't alone. Something else had been waiting for her, something patient, ancient, and hungry. Lena backed away, her breath coming in short, panicked gasps. The dolls seemed to shift subtly, heads turning almost imperceptibly to track her movements. She noticed the ballerina doll had moved closer, now standing on the edge of the hallway, its tiny face tilted up toward her, smiling. Lena shivered, realizing that the dolls were no longer just decorations. They were alive, and somehow aware of her presence. The air grew heavier. She heard a scratching sound from behind the walls, soft at first, then loud enough to make her flinch. The hallway seemed to stretch unnaturally, becoming narrower and darker, as if the house itself was warping to trap her. Shadows twisted along the walls, coiling like smoke. Lena could feel them crawling over her, brushing against her arms and shoulders without touching. Her heart raced as she stumbled into the playroom. Inside, more dolls awaited her, arranged in a circle around a small table. Each held a miniature version of Lena. Their eyes glimmered as if filled with a life of their own. The whispered giggles started again, louder this time, surrounding her from all sides. Lena screamed, but the sound seemed swallowed by the house itself. Then a sudden crash came from above. A chandelier, or perhaps something larger, tearing across the floor with a sound that made her ears ring. The dolls advanced. Their movement was synchronized, silent, predatory. Lena's only thought was escape, but the door she had entered through slammed shut with a force that rattled the entire frame. She backed into a corner, trapped. The dolls raised their tiny arms, pointing toward her with porcelain fingers. And from the shadows, a dark figure emerged, taller and thinner than any human, limbs bent unnaturally, its face obscured, but unmistakably smiling. Lena's mind raced as she backed against the corner, her eyes darting to every shadow, every doll. The dark figure advanced, its long limbs bending and stretching in impossible ways. Its smile seemed carved into its face, frozen and grotesque. The dolls around it started spinning slowly, their tiny heads turning, eyes glinting in the dim light, as if drawing energy from the presence of the creature. A cold wind swept through the room, carrying whispers she could barely understand. "Join us? Stay forever?" Lena screamed, but her voice seemed swallowed by the oppressive atmosphere. The floor beneath her began to tremble. Tiny hands, porcelain and somehow alive, emerged from the cracks in the boards, gripping her ankles and wrists, pulling her downward. Lena kicked and struggled, her nails scraping against wood, her hands hitting the air blindly. Suddenly, the tall figure lunged. Lena fell backward, her flashlight clattering across the floor. The beam illuminated dozens of dolls surrounding her, now fully animated, their movements synchronized, each step deliberate, silent, predatory. The ballerina doll crept closer, her tiny face twisted into an unnerving grin. Lena realized with horror that all the dolls had begun whispering in unison. Names, dates, threats, promises of torment, as if they had memorized every victim who had ever entered the house. Lena's back hit the wall. She felt the air grow heavier, thick with the stench of old wood, rot, and decay. The dolls raised their arms and began to shuffle toward her, a rhythmical, menacing march. The tall figure bent its head close to hers, voice layered with the echoes of the past. "You belong here, Lena, forever." For a moment, Lena thought she would pass out. The walls themselves seemed to breathe around her, closing in, tightening the space, leaving her no escape. Her only thought was, she had to survive, somehow. Lena's mind raced, trying to find a way out. She noticed a small window at the far corner, its glass filthy but intact. She could barely squeeze through it, but it was her only chance. The dolls had noticed her intent. Their synchronized whispering escalated into a cacophony of voices, calling her name, laughing at her terror. The tall figure raised its arms, and Lena felt a force pushing her toward the dolls, toward the shadows. With a surge of desperation, she lunged for the window. Porcelain fingers grabbed at her jacket, tugging her back. She kicked wildly, breaking some of the fragile hands. The dolls squealed, a high-pitched, horrifying sound that seemed to scrape against her brain. She climbed, slipping, nearly falling. The whispers intensified, chanting, crying, mocking her. The tall figure reached out with its twisted, long arm. Lena felt its cold, waxy fingers brush her hair, close to her scalp. She pushed with every ounce of strength she had left. Finally, she was halfway through the window. She glanced back, hundreds of dolls, motionless for a fraction of a second, staring with unblinking eyes. The tall figure's head jerked unnaturally, its grotesque smile frozen. But then it lunged toward her, silent, fluid, horrifying. Lena's heart thundered. She gave one final push and her body shot through the narrow opening. She rolled onto the damp grass outside, gasping, her body shaking uncontrollably. The doll's whispers faded as she stood, But Lena knew. They were still watching, waiting, patient. The house loomed behind her, silent, dark, alive. Lena didn't stop running until the house was far behind her. She collapsed against a tree, gasping for air, heart pounding in her chest like a war drum. The night was silent, but in the back of her mind, she could still hear the faint whispering of the dolls. Names, promises, threats. A chorus of tiny voices that would haunt her forever. She glanced back once more. The windows were dark, but she could swear she saw shapes moving, shadows twisting unnaturally. The house had not released her. It had only allowed her a temporary escape. Lena understood something terrifying. The dolls were patient, immortal in a way, and they would wait for her, or for the next soul foolish enough to enter. The cool night air did nothing to calm her shaking. Lena realized she would never forget the gleaming, lifelike eyes, the grotesque smiles, or the feeling of being hunted by hundreds of porcelain faces. The memory of the tall figure, the whispers, and the moving dolls would remain forever etched in her mind. Somewhere deep in her chest, a cold fear settled. The dolls were still alive. The house was still awake. And somewhere, somehow, it was planning its next victim. Lena ran into the darkness, but she knew the terror of the doll house would follow her always. Lena barely escaped the doll house, but the terror didn't end. Even now, as she runs through the empty streets, she can feel their eyes, hundreds of lifeless porcelain eyes, watching her from the shadows. She knows they are patient, waiting, and the house will never release its prey. Somewhere, deep in the dark corners of that cursed place, the dolls are alive and plotting. Lena whispers a warning to anyone who dares approach. If you value your soul, stay away, or the dolls will claim you next. The wind howls, the shadows twist, and the doll house waits. Have you ever stared into a mirror and felt it was staring back? Tonight, we follow Emily, who discovers that her reflection isn't hers. It has black eyes, a mind of its own, and a hunger for her soul. Every surface around her becomes a portal to darkness, every shadow a threat. Can she survive the night, or will she become trapped forever in the mirror's deadly game? Watch closely, and don't blink. Emily had always been drawn to antiques, but nothing intrigued her more than the mirror she found in the corner of the old curio shop. Its frame was ornate, blackened with age, with tiny carvings of twisting faces and hands reaching out as if trapped in the wood. The glass itself was strangely dark, reflecting not the room, but something deeper, something waiting. When she first looked into it, her reflection seemed normal, but the eyes were different. They were hollow, like pools of ink, staring straight into her soul. She laughed nervously, telling herself it was just the lighting, or perhaps her imagination running wild. But over the next few nights, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that the mirror was watching her, waiting for something. Shadows seemed to flicker inside the glass, and sometimes, she thought she saw her reflection move slightly out of sync with her own movements. One evening, alone in her apartment, she set the mirror against the wall and sat across from it. She felt a strange pull, as if the dark eyes were calling her, inviting her closer. Her hand reached out, trembling, and the moment her fingertips brushed the cold glass, she saw it, the other Emily. Not her reflection, but a version of her without eyes, grinning silently and mimicking her movements exactly. Emily gasped, pulling back, but the other version didn't retreat. It simply smiled, tilting its head as if mocking her fear. From that night on, Emily knew the mirror wasn't just an object. It was alive, patient, and it wanted something from her. Something she wasn't ready to understand. Days passed, but Emily couldn't leave the mirror behind. It seemed to follow her everywhere, appearing in reflections of windows, shiny surfaces, even in her phone screen. Every time she glanced at it, the hollow eyes stared deeper, and the shadowy figure behind the glass grew clearer. It was no longer just a reflection, it was something alive, learning, imitating. The first time she screamed, it didn't scream back. Instead, it tilted its head, fingers pressing against the inside of the glass, as if reaching for her soul. Emily felt an icy grip around her chest, a terror she couldn't explain. Friends noticed her pale, hollow-eyed appearance, and when she tried to explain, no one believed her. The mirror was her secret, her prison, and the only thing keeping her awake at night was the fear of what might come through the black glass next. She started seeing small details she hadn't noticed. Faint scratches on the frame like fingernails, tiny whispers carried by the cold wind near the mirror, and fleeting shadows of herself moving independently. Every moment she turned her back, it seemed closer, hungrier, more patient. One evening, Emily decided she had to confront it. She set up candles around the mirror, their flames flickering in the darkness, creating moving shadows on the walls. She stared straight into the black glass, daring the hollow-eyed figure to show itself. The reflection moved first, slow, deliberate, stretching its limbs in impossible ways. Emily felt her blood freeze as the figure's grin widened, revealing teeth sharper than any human's. It whispered, a voice not her own. "You can't leave. You belong to the reflection now." Emily tried to pull away, but her hands were glued to the frame, cold and sticky as if the glass had become a living trap. Panic surged through her body. She realized the reflection wasn't just imitating her. It was learning from her, anticipating her every movement. Shadows formed behind it, coiling like snakes, whispering her fears back to her. She screamed, the sound echoing into the room, but it felt like it only made the mirror hungrier. The glass began to ripple, and for the first time, Emily could see hands pressing against the other side, trying to break through. Every instinct told her to run, but the mirror held her fast, and the hollow eyes never blinked. Emily knew she had to escape, but the mirror's pull was relentless. She tried covering it again, moving it, even tilting it to face the wall, but nothing stopped it. At night, she could hear faint giggles behind the glass, whispers repeating her thoughts, her fears, her memories. The hollow-eyed figure had learned who she was, and it wanted more than her reflection. It wanted her soul. She felt herself slipping into the glass, the world around her fading, shadows from the mirror stretching into her room. She screamed, grabbing a metal rod and striking the frame. Cracks appeared, and the figure hissed in anger. But even as the mirror fractured, Emily knew the danger wasn't gone. The reflection had tasted her fear, and it would wait, patient, until the next moment it could pull her back in. Emily collapsed on the floor, gasping, sweat mixing with tears. She realized the mirror was no ordinary object. It was a predator, cunning and immortal in its patience. And now she was part of its story, a story it would continue to write, one nightmare at a time. The following morning, Emily awoke to find her reflection missing. For a brief moment, the glass was simply black, as if it had never reflected anything at all. Panic rose in her chest. She waved her hands, shouted, and stared, but the mirror remained silent and empty. Then, a faint tapping began, like fingernails drumming from within. Emily leaned closer, trembling, and saw a shadow emerge from the blackness. An outline of herself, hunched and distorted, eyes hollow and glinting. It whispered in a voice only she could hear, repeating her darkest thoughts, mocking her insecurities, feeding on her fear. Emily felt herself losing control. The shadow leaned closer, pressing against the glass from inside, leaving streaks of condensation that formed hands reaching toward her. She stumbled back, but the apartment seemed different. Walls stretching, shadows thickening, as if the mirror's influence had begun seeping into reality. She knew she couldn't escape by mere avoidance. The mirror had claimed a part of her mind, a connection that allowed it to manipulate her world. Every reflective surface became a potential portal, every shadow a lurking menace. The thought of leaving the apartment filled her with dread. She wasn't just trapped by the mirror anymore. She was trapped by herself, her reflection, and the darkness lurking within. By evening, Emily's exhaustion was total, but sleep offered no respite. As she closed her eyes, she imagined the shadow creeping closer, and when she opened them, it was there, moving independently, grinning with an impossible stretch of teeth. It reached out from the mirror, the glass bending unnaturally, fingers stretching beyond its frame. Emily tried to scream, but her voice felt swallowed. The sound caught in a void between reality and reflection. The mirror seemed to pulse, alive with a heartbeat that matched her own. Shapes twisted behind the black glass, some recognizable, others grotesque, crawling along its surface. Emily's own hands began to tremble uncontrollably, drawn toward the mirror as if invisible threads pulled her closer. She realized then that fear itself strengthened the mirror. Every shiver, every gasp fed it, and the shadow of herself, more daring now, leaned forward, stretching its hand beyond the glass, reaching for her in a horrifying invitation. Emily's mind raced. She couldn't break the connection. The mirror had become a predator, patient and cunning, shaping her thoughts and molding reality around her. Her reflection was no longer her guide. It was a monster waiting to replace her entirely. Emily tried leaving the apartment, but every reflective surface betrayed her. Store windows, polished metal, even the water in her glass revealed that black-eyed version, always closer than before, grinning wider, creeping toward her reality. She realized then that escape was meaningless. The mirror's influence was no longer confined to the glass itself. At night, she saw the reflection outside her bedroom window, black eyes glowing faintly in the dark. She hid under the blankets, but the presence was patient, whispering her name softly, repeating promises she didn't want to hear. The reflection wanted her attention, her fear, and, eventually, her life. Each whisper made her heart race. Each shadow crawled closer, until Emily felt trapped in a prison with walls made of mirrors, where every reflection was a threat, and the only escape was the impossible. One morning, Emily noticed something new. Faint scratches along the mirror's edge, forming letters she didn't remember making. "Join me," they spelled, sharp and deliberate. She recoiled, realizing the mirror was communicating, testing her, inviting her to step fully into its world. The next night, she awoke to find the black-eyed reflection sitting on her bed, motionless, waiting. Her fear made her body heavy, unable to move, while the reflection's grin widened, eyes glowing faintly. Emily understood the horrifying truth. The mirror wanted her entirely, not as a reflection, but as a living vessel it could control. Emily's desperation grew. She tried smashing the mirror, throwing it out, even covering every reflective surface in her apartment. But the black-eyed version always found a way back. It was patient, cunning, and relentless. Shadows grew longer at night, whispering her fears, guiding her movements, waiting for the moment to pull her fully into the glass world. She knew she had to fight, but the reflection learned from her every attempt. Every scream, every struggle made it stronger. Emily felt the cold grip of inevitability. The mirror wasn't just a threat. It was her destiny, a world she could never escape, a nightmare she would live in every waking moment. Emily could no longer trust her own reflection. Every surface she passed reminded her of the shadow version waiting patiently, calculating her next move. She began to feel it in her dreams, the mirror's presence extending into her subconscious. Faces she barely recognized appeared in the glass, screaming silently, their hollow eyes pleading for her help or warning her to stay away. She started avoiding mirrors entirely, but even her phone's camera betrayed her. Every selfie revealed the black-eyed version slightly behind her, grinning, tilting its head mockingly. Emily realized that the mirror's influence was spreading. It wasn't confined to the antique glass anymore. Every reflective surface became a portal, every shadow a threat. That night, she heard whispers from the hallway, soft and urgent, calling her name. The air grew cold, and her apartment felt smaller, as though the walls themselves leaned in to trap her. The mirror wanted her attention, and Emily's fear had given it power. She shivered uncontrollably, feeling the darkness press against her mind. preparing to pull her fully into the reflection world. The next day, Emily discovered scratches forming new words on the mirror's frame. Step closer. Her breath caught. It wasn't just an object anymore. It was alive, demanding her obedience. Shadows stretched across the floor, moving independently, following her every step. The black-eyed figure inside the glass seemed to anticipate her thoughts before she even had them. Emily's reflection began to reach beyond the boundaries of the frame, thin tendrils of shadow flickering out like fingers brushing her skin. Her heart pounded, every beat echoing in her ears, each one making the darkness stronger. She wanted to flee but felt roots of terror binding her to the apartment. Even the sunlight coming through the window couldn't weaken its power. The mirror was patient and cunning, knowing it only needed time. In the dead silence, she felt her body grow heavy, her mind clouded. The reflection moved closer, leaning forward, almost merging with her reality. It whispered promises she didn't want to hear, drawing her deeper into a nightmare that was no longer confined to glass. It had begun to reshape the very world around her. Emily noticed that the mirror's reflection wasn't limited to her actions anymore. Her fears, memories, and secrets were mirrored, twisted, and amplified inside it. She remembered moments she had buried deep, embarrassing, horrifying, shameful, and the mirror displayed them like trophies for the black-eyed figure. Each recollection made the shadows behind the glass shift, growing darker and more tangible. Her dreams became haunted, filled with the mirror's whispers and distorted shapes. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the reflection reaching toward her, dragging invisible chains, pulling her slowly into the darkness. Her apartment felt alive, the walls bending, the floor tilting. The boundary between reflection and reality blurred, leaving Emily trapped in a liminal nightmare she couldn't escape. Even her own body felt foreign, controlled by the anticipation of the reflection. The black-eyed figure had learned patience, and patience was power. Emily realized that her survival depended not just on resisting the mirror, but on outsmarting it. Something that seemed impossible as the shadows whispered her name, promising eventual surrender. The mirror's whispers grew louder, more insistent. Emily could feel them under her skin, invading her thoughts. They told her she was alone, that no one could save her, and that the black-eyed reflection was patient enough to wait for the perfect moment. The world outside her apartment seemed distant, unreal. Her friends' voices faded into whispers she could barely hear. One night, Emily saw movement in the corner of her eye, tiny fingers emerging from the frame, reaching for her. She stumbled backward, realizing that the barrier between the mirror and reality had weakened. Shadows spilled onto the floor, twisting around her feet, whispering threats she couldn't ignore. She felt the reflection's hunger, a dark desire to pull her entirely into the glass. Emily screamed, but the sound seemed trapped inside her throat. Her reflection mirrored her panic, grinning wider with every passing second. She realized there was no turning back. The mirror wasn't just alive. It was hungry, cunning, and immortal, and she was now prey in its endless game. Emily knew she couldn't fight the mirror with force alone. She needed strategy, cunning, and calm. Every reflective surface in the apartment became a battlefield. She moved cautiously, avoiding windows and polished metal, covering mirrors with blankets. But no precaution could shield her from the whispers, the subtle movements, the feeling of eyes following her. The black-eyed figure learned from her every attempt. It stretched its fingers further each night, tested her limits, and mocked her growing fear. Emily realized the mirror didn't need to kill her quickly. It was patient. Each moment of terror strengthened it, feeding the darkness within the glass. Her only hope was to outsmart it, to stay awake and alert, to resist the pull of its hollow eyes. But as she lay awake that night, she could feel the mirror breathing, alive, waiting for the moment when patience would turn into inevitability. The nights grew longer, and Emily's exhaustion made her more vulnerable. The black-eyed reflection no longer waited patiently. It stalked her every move. Shadows twisted violently across the floor, creeping toward her when she least expected it. Emily could feel the cold breath of the mirror on her neck even when she turned away. Each whisper in the dark was sharper now, filled with promises of terror she couldn't escape. She tried to destroy small mirrors, shattering them into jagged fragments, but the reflections reassembled instantly, glinting with black eyes that watched her. Blood dripped from the shards as if the mirror itself was wounded when broken, feeding its strength from her fear. Emily realized the mirror wasn't just alive. It was sentient, cunning, and utterly relentless. Every heartbeat, every tremor of panic, made it stronger. She began to feel herself losing grip on reality. What was real? What was reflection? The line had vanished, and the mirror's darkness threatened to consume her completely. One night, Emily woke to a horrifying sight. The black-eyed reflection had emerged from the mirror entirely, standing on the floor with a grin that stretched impossibly wide. Its movements were unnatural, jerking and twitching, like a puppet animated by some dark force. Emily stumbled backward, tripping over her own feet, but the figure advanced relentlessly. It whispered her deepest fears aloud, mocking them with sadistic pleasure. Emily realized that the reflection wanted more than her attention. It wanted her soul, her essence, to inhabit fully. She tried to scream, but the sound was swallowed by the darkness. Each moment with the reflection was more terrifying than the last, every movement calculated to drain her hope. She understood then that she had become prey, trapped in a predator's perfect game, where survival depended on outsmarting a creature that had already learned her every weakness. Emily realized there was only one way to survive. She had to confront the reflection head-on. She approached the mirror, trembling, heart pounding. The reflection mirrored her movements exactly, grinning wider with every step she took. Emily reached out, fingers trembling, and touched the cold glass surface. Instantly, the room seemed to shift. Shadows writhed, the temperature plummeted, and whispers filled her ears. The reflection's grin twisted into something monstrous, teeth sharp and gleaming. Emily felt her consciousness being pulled toward the mirror, her body becoming heavier, as if invisible hands dragged her soul toward the black-eyed figure. Panic surged, but she forced herself to stay calm, knowing that any hesitation would give the reflection the control it craved. Summoning all her courage, Emily focused on her own reflection, trying to assert control. She whispered her name, claiming herself, refusing to let the black-eyed figure take over. The reflection recoiled slightly, its monstrous grin faltering. Shadows trembled and hissed. The whispers grew louder, accusing, trying to pull her back into fear. Emily's mind became a battlefield, will against will. She forced herself to move closer, touching the glass firmly. Slowly, the reflection's hold weakened, its form flickering between solid and shadow. Emily felt the tension, the mirror fighting for dominance. She clenched her eyes shut for a heartbeat, then opened them with determination. Her own courage, her refusal to surrender, became the weapon the black-eyed figure hadn't expected. With a final surge of determination, Emily shattered the black-eyed reflection's power. She focused entirely on her own presence, refusing to fear, refusing to let the darkness consume her. The mirror cracked violently, shadows retreating, whispers fading into silence. For the first time in weeks, the apartment felt normal, safe, the air no longer heavy with menace. Emily knew the mirror was not gone. It would always exist, a dormant predator waiting, but she had reclaimed her mind and body. She stepped back, breathing heavily, her reflection now just herself, whole and unbroken. Though the memory of the black-eyed figure lingered in her mind, Emily understood that courage, resilience, and refusal to surrender could hold even the darkest forces at bay. The mirror remained, but she was no longer its prey. Emily finally stood before the cracked mirror, her reflection whole and calm. The black-eyed figure had vanished, shadows retreating, whispers silenced. She knew the mirror still existed, waiting, patient, but she had reclaimed herself. Fear no longer controlled her. She had survived, and for now she was free. Yet, The faintest flicker of darkness reminded her that some nightmares never truly end.